Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Thanks for tuning in once again. I appreciate you guys making the time to be here always, learning together. Today, guys, we're just gonna go ahead and continue, their investigation uncovering historical Black Europeans from many different periods, noble, regular people, royal, whatever. We're talking about medieval people as well. So we're gonna continue going through some of the Kirkland files. Shout out to Kirkland and the CW files. Shout out to CW. They did a lot of good sharing with me and research, and I've been holding these, so we gotta go ahead and get through them. Right? It helps out speeding up the research when people like Kirkland, CW help out with some of these sources, and we do these kind of videos with them. Right? So, beginning, we're gonna go ahead and get into this book that you're looking at here from the 1600s. This book is in Latin. This is the name of the book, Germani Topochronos Thematographica Sacrae Profane. All right. And then there's different volumes of it. So this is one, volume two from 1662. This is by Gabrielis Buscellini. Gabrielis Buscellini, all right, from the 1600s. We're going to see who this is. So I asked Google AI, right, what this book was about. I said, as you guys can see, what is the Germania Topochromos Stefanographica, and it says, the Germania Topochromos Demographica Sacrae Profane is a comprehensive 17th century historical and genealogical work written in Latin by the Benedictine monk and historian Gabriel Buscellin, right? That's the one I just showed you. Published around 1655, 1672, it details the topography, chronology, genealogy, and history of Germany, covering both sacred, ecclesiastical, and profane circular topics. Okay, Gabriel was born 1599 to 1681. The content of his work spans multiple parts, 11 parts, and includes detailed information on German regions, noble families, okay, and historical events, often incorporating genealogical trees, which they call stemato, right? Significance, it is a valuable source, okay? It is a valuable source. Again, it is a valuable source. It's not myth. This ain't myth for medieval and modern German history, geography, and genealogy. That's what we're talking about, right? We're going to get right into it today. Publication early editions were printed in Augsburg and by Gorling. It says it is often found as a multi-volume set, focusing on the detailed documentation of the Holy Roman Empire's territories, okay? Again, guys, we're going to be talking about a family here, just like our coat of arms videos that I got, 6 videos on that, the different Austrian and Bohemian and Holy Roman clergy families and all these people, right? In medieval times, which were black folks. Well, this is just another one right here. All right, we're going to show it right now. Okay. So I continued and I said, okay, in it, it talks about the Morson family. So I wanted to see what it's going to say about that, right? So it says, in Gabriel Buscelli's book, the one we just showed, right, from the 1600s, the Morson family is documented as a noble lineage with roots that the author traces back to Friuli, Italy, before they established themselves in the Holy Roman Empire. So I guess this clan, the Friuli, traces back to the Etruscans, guys. Watch, you're going to see. Key genealogical detail in the works. Origins. Buscelli identifies the family's early ancestors in the 16th century, specifically mentioning Ansel von Moor, living in 1532 as a primary figure. Who? Ansel von Moor. Descent, the work outlines the transition of the family from Italy to the northern territories of the empire. Notable figures mentioned in early 17th century lineages include Matthias von Morsen, who died after 1562, Caspar von Morsen, who married Eleonora Malacrida, Blasius von Morsen, born 1560, who moved to Bohemia and married Hieronima Atana Savaroli in 1596, right? So pay attention to this part. So by the time this guy wrote this book in the 1600s, because this family is like famous since the 1200s, guys. So by that time, 400 years later, the status, by the time of Mussolini's writing, mid 1600s, so he met them, guys. The Morsens were recognized as significant Bohemian nobility. This was the era when the family was being elevated to the rank of Counts Reichsgrafen, eventually becoming famous as patrons of the arts, most notably for Joseph Haydn, who served as their Kapellmeister in the following century. Okay, so by this time, the Morsen family was well known, had a lot of high status. Their genealogy was well known, guys. So by the time he wrote this, he knew their genealogy. It's not myth, because when you ask ChatGPT this stuff, it starts telling you, well, they don't mean the Etruscans is a myth. They add in legend. They try to link themselves to kings. Nah, that's their royal line, guys. Literally. Listen to what it says. Mussolini included the Morsens in the Stemanografica genealogical section of his work because they represented the successful integration of Southern nobility into the Germanic and Bohemian social fabric of the 17th century. His records serve as some of the earliest formal genealogical trees for the family. Okay? His works, his records serve as some of the earliest formal genealogical trees for the family in a major printed historical compendium. This is true history, not myth. Okay, I just wanted to get that out the way real quick. Let's head over to the Telegram chat with Kirkland. Now, real quick, Kirkland says here, I found that the Morsen family originally bore the surname Moore, descending from the ancient noble line of the Quitum de Mauro, the Knights of the Moor, whose ancestry traces back to the Etruscan period. The first known knight in the documented line is Ansel von Moor. The family adopted the name Morsen, but retained the crown black Moor in their heraldry, a likeness of their ancestral identity. This is what he's talking about, okay? Let's look at it. So Morsen, right? You guys see? You see the double-headed eagle of the Habsburgs, the Roman. You see? So what are we seeing here? Integration of this Southern people into these Germanic Holy Roman families, huh? What's going on here? Who are they? Is this Ishmael or, Joktan's pure Arabs going into the Idumean Etruscan lines and then eventually mixing with Idumeans, the Khazars and all that? What's going on here? This is Psalms 83. Huh? What's going on here? Either way, this is the heraldry, right? You see what they're showing. You see what they're showing, right? Letting you know who are they. All right? Now we're going to read from a more modern book about this, describing what's in this book. The old book, right? This book's from the 1600s, says the Count Morsen family, which has now been in the kingdom of Behem for about 100 years, where they also possess several other considerable states in addition to a beautiful and prestigious entail. Descends from the ancient, very noble family of the Lords of Moors, or Mauren, whose line of Brucellinus parte segunda begins with Arums Mauro or Moor, who was Emperor Flavius Vespasianus' vice procurator in Raetia around the year 80 of Christ. Wow, that's so significant, guys. Come on now. You guys saw my Piso, the Gospels of Piso, right? My New Testament video, who's the Pisos and how they relate to Emperor Flavius Vespani. That's them. That's them. They Pisos. Vespasius, Emperor Flavius Vespasius, Josephus people and all these. He's the one that invaded Jerusalem. Literally, he's the one that invaded Jerusalem and then surrounded the Israelites in Jerusalem and didn't let them out and they made them starve to death. And that's the whole story of Josephus surviving and all this other stuff. Hey guys, this is the same people. So they're dealing with the Morsen family. The Morsen family worked under them as vice procurator and Rieti around the year 80 in Christ. Come on now. And it is to the special honor and praise of this ancient noble family that it should be denoted that as Baroness and other state. So it keeps going, but we don't have that part, right? Just another little expert here, real quick. It says the Count Morsen family descends in a direct line from the ancient noble family of Equitum de Mauro or Ritter von Moor, descended from a Etrurian royal line. Etrurian means Etruscan. Etrurian. The Etrurians, Etruscans, royal line. Okay? This assumption has been confirmed by older writers, particularly Buscellini. That's who we're getting it from, okay? That's the first book I showed you. And later, Hubner and others, and proven as far as possible through the family tree lines, okay? The following information is drawn exclusively from original documents and diplomas found in the Count's family archives and is therefore authentic. This is authentic. The first close acquaintance of the family, who later bore the name Morsen, was Ansel Ritter von Moor, who, as imperial commandant of the town of Graz and Styria, okay, defended and go so on, so on. We can get into more. You can follow up who he is, what he did. But guys, come on, this is real authentic. It's telling you right here. Therefore, authentic is coming from primary sources. Buscellini knew the Morsens. All right, he didn't just make it up in the 1600s. And I'm going to show you. We're going to show you their family tree. We're going to show you from this book from the 1600s from Buscellini. This is what it says. Pay attention to the top. It says Maurorum Etruscae Vetu. Etruscae Vetu. And right under it says Stilimai and Raitia Superiori Familia Fragmento Genealonicum. Right? We're going to translate that. But you see what's here, right? That's them. That's them depicting themselves. This royal Etruscan Lomo line who became Romans. Right? Pay attention. Oskinfo gain kinfolk. More and more war. Apollo More. Look at Apollo More. 5 Maurus. Look at all this, right? More. Look at the tree. This is the whole tree. It's breaking down each person genealogically. Come on now. So by the time, and look at the years, 1437, up here 1369, and then going up, you got 1299. And then look at this is crazy, guys. Year 830. Look, 830, and then look it up here. Year 180, 180. Come on now, 109. Come on, all the way to year 80, 100 ADs, in their fake chronology, right? But still, very ancient family. All right, very ancient. This is another one right here. Hold on. So, this is another one right here. It's the same, related to them. And we're going to get the drop from Kirkland. You guys see that? We're going to see who these people are. Aruns Maurus. You see Apollonius Mauri. And look at the years as well and the genealogy going down. Same thing, guys. All related to them. They're all the same family. All right, real quick, let's get what Kirkland's going to say about this. It says, this appears to be the Etruscan family. Maurorum Etrusco Vetu. All right, and then he, Stilimai, that's the Latin, right? And then he translated it. Look what it says, guys. It says, translation, genealogical fragment of the most ancient Etruscan family of the Mauri and Upper Raetia. Okay? And that's from the book we just looked, from 1662. Okay? Any questions? So this is what we're trying to show you guys. Black Europeans, right? More and more war, black on black. Romans, Holy Roman clergy. Holy Roman clergy. All right? Any questions? We're going to continue now. All right, so before we continue, I just want to remind you, you want all the drop on all the research we've done on so-called Black Europeans. Make sure to check out the playlist that's already created for you. We got 182 videos in this playlist. A lot of you haven't watched most of these videos. You're missing a lot of context. You're missing a lot of history. It's not just today's video. It's not just yesterday's video. We got so many references and proof that Europe was so-called black. Many black Europeans have been whitewashed. It's a lot, guys. This is the playlist. It's called Black Europeans History. All right, and it has a lot. Make sure to at least watch as many as you can if you like the drop. these kind of videos, all right, that we're doing these last 2 days, because I got a whole bunch, all right. And we continue with Kirkland real quick. It says The Wooden World Dissected. This is the book we're about to get into. It says, in the character of a ship of war, as also the characters of all the officers, from the captain to the common sailor, example, or vice versa, a sea captain, the second, and so on and so on, by the author of The London Spy, 1744. All right, this is a book from the 1700s. And what we're going to quickly get is another reference of Charles II. Yeah, Black Charles II. Swarthy. Yeah, Black Boy, right? The guy who was born so black his mother named him Black Boy. The Black Boy Inn and the Black Boy Tavern named after famous Charles II. All right, so this is just a quick reference. There's so many references of Charles II. I have a whole video on Charles II in that playlist I just showed you. Make sure to catch it. With so many sources proving he was a so-called black man. All right, so let's get to this source real quick, just to show it another reference to add today. About page 67 of this book, they're talking about, His Majesty, talking about Charles II right here, right? You can read the whole chapter if you like to make sure that they are. So you see, we're not just making things up here. Down in this page, describing him, it says, I saw him there within these 2 minutes myself. What, sir? Demands Jack. And is he walking there alone? No, replies the gentleman. There are a great many of the nobility and gentry along with him. How may anybody know then? Cries Jack. Which is he? How's anybody gonna know that that's him, man? Why, says the gentleman again, the king is a very tall black man. That's how. If you see a tall black man, that's Charles II. A tall black man. All right, let me zoom into that. A tall black man, and you may know him by a star on his left breast and a blue ribbon hanging from his neck. Talking about Charles II. Again, a whole other reference of Charles II being so-called black. So we ain't done yet with Charles II. We got some more sources. Again, there's so many of Charles II and his dad and all the other ones. This book right here is called The Mystery and Method of His Majesty's Happy Restoration, laid upon to public view. All right, by John Price, D.D., and the last Duke of Albemarle Champlain. And this is from 1683. And we go to page 43 of this book, and I just want to show you in reference to Charles II, man. Talking about a dream, right? This is a religious kind of book at the time. And it says, she saw a great crown. This is Monk's wife. I believe that's what they're saying here. Monk's wife will get the drop. It says, she saw a great crown of gold on the top of Dungill, with a numerous company of brave men encompassed by, but for a great while none would break the ring. At last there came a tall black man up to the dunghill, took up the crown, and put it upon his head. They're talking about Charles II here. Upon the relating of this, she asks, what manner of man the king was, all right? The king. I told her that when I was in Eton Scholar, I saw at Winford, sometimes the Prince of Wales, okay, that's Charles II, the Prince of Wales, at the head of a company of boys. That himself was a very lovely black boy. All right, so they're saying tall black man, and they're calling him a black boy, right? And that I heard that since he was grown very tall. Okay? Who? Black boy, Charles II, a very tall black man, which literally just matches the last source we just read, right? Tall black man. Let's continue. So we're going to read from a 17th century pamphlet as well, published around 1652, 1653. The book is called A Voice from Heaven, the one right here you see, to the Commonwealth of England. It was written by Rhys Evans she was born in 1607, but I think it was written another time. All right, the pamphlet is a commentary of the state of England and London during the Commonwealth era, following the English Civil War and execution of King Charles I. It reflects the intense religious and political atmosphere of the mid-17th century, where many individuals interpreted current events through a lens of divine judgment and prophecy. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this book, A Voice of Heaven to the Commonwealth of England. So this is around page 5. And it says here first that whereas there came a black bull, mighty and terrible in appearance, fromward the northern parts to London, so there shall come in like manner a man of black complexion, a man of black complexion, and of irrefutable and majestic countenance. That is to say, Charles, called King of the Scots. All right, that's who they talking about. Charles II, King of the Scots, man. A man of black complexion, okay? Shall infallibly come with a great and dreadful power from Scotland. It's most probable, and from the northern parts of this nation, where he and his army shall first land to this city of London. Okay? Charles II, King of the Scots, a man of black complexion. Black complexion. And now we continue with somebody more down the line. We're talking about Charles XIV, right? It says here, the New Dominion Monthly for 1876. This is the book we're going to get into, all right? From 1876, called the New Dominion Monthly. So over on page 431, we get a description here of Charles XIV. I just want to read this part first. It says here, just zoom in a little bit more. The death of Charles XIII in 1818, called Bernadotte. That's the guy's real name. That's his real name, Bernadotte, to the throne under the title of Charles XIV. Okay, so these people have titles that those ain't their real names. All right, so this is about Bernadotte, who is Charles XIV. Right, in person, Bernadotte was very handsome, tall, soldierly, and commanding, like most of the natives of the south of France. He had a brown complexion, dark brilliant eyes, and black beard and hair, just like most of the natives of southern France, okay? Just like the Huguenots, right? Southern France, where they settled, right? The Moors settled and became known as Huguenots. Well, just like most of the natives of the south of France, Charles XIV had a brown complexion, okay? Brown complexion, Charles XIV. This is way later. This is in the 1800s, okay? Charles XIV, they still swarthy in the 1800s. This line of Charleses, right? So continuing with this Charles XIV, right? Which his name was John Bernadotte. Now, as you guys can see, I'm going to show you something else. It says he was born between 1763 and 1844, was king of Sweden and Norway until 1818, until his death in 1844, and the first monarch of the Bernadotte dynasty. In Norway, he is known as Charles III. Okay, before he became royalty in Sweden, his name was Jean-Baptiste Jules Bernadotte. That's his real name. During the Napoleonic Wars, he participated in several battles as a Marshal of France. Now look, guys, look at the image they got for him. Let me just zoom into this. Does this look like a brown complexion person to you? Now I'm going to show you another source describing him as a swarthy Moor, like a swarthy Moor. Does this look like a swarthy Moor to you? Watch. All right, they have whitewash history, guys. We ain't making this up. You know, again, he was born in the region of southern France known as Bern. Bernadotte joined the French Royal Army in 1780. Following the outbreak of the French Revolution, he demonstrated great military talent, rising rapidly through the ranks and becoming a brigadier general by 1794. He served with distinction in Italy and Germany and was briefly Minister of War. His relationship with Napoleon was turbulent. Nevertheless, Napoleon named him a Marshal of the Empire on the proclamation of the French Empire. Bernadotte played a significant role in the French victory at Austerlitz and was made Prince of Pontecorvo as a reward. His marriage to Desiree Clary, whose sister was married to Joseph Bonaparte, okay? Whose sister was married to Joseph. Remember, we did his painting yesterday. It got whitewashed. He's a black man. He got described as a brown complexion. All these Bonapartes, even Napoleon. So even this guy, who was a general and whatever, in the French Royal Army, he became Charles XIV, right? King of Sweden and all that. I'm going to show you another source. You ready? So we're in this book, The Century Monthly Magazine, and this is from 1927. Okay, volume 114. Now I go to page 371 of this book. All right. And I'm going to go to this time. It says, meantime, Napoleon had risen long before the sun. He had issued an innocent invitation the night before to a number of the generals to take an early breakfast with him in the morning. Already several were here: Murat, Lanis, and the loyal conspirators in the preponderant majority, but also a few of the disaffected. Bernadotte, here he goes, a tall Bernice, that's him, with a complexion as swarthy as a Moor's, with a complexion as swarthy, so swarthy as a Moor. Body bag for the illusion. Yeah, they whitewashed him. You see that image they got of him? Come on, guys, look at this. Bernadotte, first he's described as brown complexion. His sister is married. He's married to the sister who's married to the sister of her sister's married to Joseph. So Bernadotte, tall, Bernays with a complexion of swarthy as a Moor, okay? Swarthy, black like a Moor. Swarthy means black, Negro. And a raven lock of hair falling over his coal black eyes, had gone upstairs by special invitation to his chief study. The rest basked in the radiance of Madame la General's smile, okay? So not only does he have a swarthy complexion like a Moor, he has a lock of hair, locks, lock, like dreadlock, lock of hair falling over his coal black eyes, okay? A lock, a raven lock, a black lock, raven, okay? Swarthy like a Moor. Again, let's go look at the image. Now you tell me if this is somebody that looks swarthy, so dark complexion, as swarthy like a Moor. It doesn't, right? It doesn't fit the general descriptions of this person. History has been whitewashed. Attack of the body snatchers, man. Yo, they literally whitewashed this guy. The sources say something else. They say he's swarthy like a Moor. Swarthy like a Moor. How can this guy be swarthy like a Moor? Dash the hijack. You see, guys, what we're uncovering? You see the lies in history? All right. Shout out to Kirkland again. Now, just to add more to the Bernadottes, there's two more sources here that Kirkland has shared. I just want to go ahead quickly share them with you. These are in French. All right. It says here that this was translated from the book Les Cours et les Chanceliers, Impressions et Souvenirs by Louis Luçon-le-Duc from 1876. This is on page 242. And this is the translation where we're going to get right here. It says, King Oscar, as a man, is an accomplished horseman. He is tall, slender, his bearing, although imposing, even a little stiff, does not exclude a kind of benevolence. He wears his beard, which is beautiful black. He has a broad and open forehead, the lively and colorful complexion of the Bernadottes. All right, they mean dark because we know he was dark, and also of the Bernadottes, especially of Kings Oscar I and Charles XV. So even Charles XV, they were swarthy, right? The soft and penetrating gaze he delights in the midst of his children, whose education he directs with attentive solitude, all right? So Bernadotte's colorful complexion. Now this, we're going to get another source. It's called from the Revue Britannique, the Revue Internationale reproduisant les articles de Milurs écrits périodiques. That's the name of the whole book, which is from 1862, page 307. This is the translation we're going to get. All right, it says the real heroes of the party. It says, compared to these Asiatics, the Prince of Prussia looked too simple for a prince. And if we paid a little more attention to Prince Oscar of Sweden, it was because, thanks to his Gascon origin, this grandson of Bernadotte, had a dark complexion in which something of the color yellow was reflected. Yellowish, dark complexion. These are people of color. That's why I say the colorful Bernadottes. We already saw him described as brown complexion, swarthy like a Moor, colorful complexions, now dark complexion, all right? That's it. You know, the Bernadottes officially, guys, they were black folks, black family, royal French people, okay? The Bernadotte, and all these kings, all right? The Prince Oscar of Sweden, all of them. All of these people, dark complexions, so-called black folks, black Europeans. Just one more source before we go. Another one on Prince Oscar, who is related to the Bernadotte. He's also a Bernadotte. This is from the book The Photographic News, a weekly record of the progress of photography, edited by William Crooks and by G. Wharton Simpson, Volume 6 by William Crooks, 1862. I'm going to zoom into this part right here. It says Prince Oscar of Sweden, a remarkably handsome man of almost gigantic stature, had so exceedingly swarthy as to disappoint, was so exceedingly swarthy. Okay, he was gigantic in stature and so exceedingly swarthy, so dark. He's so dark, King Oscar, and then Bernadotte, Charles XIV, and also Charles V, and all of these people. So exceedingly swarthy as to disappoint some ladies who imagine that all Scandinavians must be fair. Oh, that's a body bag right there, you see? You see how they're saying, oh, you thought Scandinavians were white? Nah, man. This family from Scandinavia is exceedingly swarthy, man. Oh, the ladies are gonna be disappointed if they wanted somebody lighter from Scandinavia. Oh, if they thought the Scandinavians were fair, nope, they're swarthy. Till they were told that the royal suite was the descendant of the southern Frenchman Bernadotte, okay? The Dark Prince never stirred and seemed as if it would take a blow from Thor's hammer to move him. The only exception to the rule was Lord Palmerston, who was gossiping now with the Bishop of London and now with the Chancellor and seemed to heartily to appreciate Albert's music. Okay, so you see, it keeps going. But this is crazy, right? A descendant of Bernadotte. That's why he's Swarty is saying. Oh, he's a Scandinavian, though, now. He's up there now. They had moved up there. Prince Oscar, okay? His descendant. The Bernadotte who was Swarty like a Moor. All right? He's very exceedingly Swarty as well. So-called black. All right? Shout out to Kirkland. All right, so we continue here. We do a quick little interlude. We're going over to the CW files now. And real quick, just to show that Swarty in general, especially in those olden times, you know, when reading these books, 1600s, 1700s, it literally means people of dark complexion. They're not just talking about a tan. So it says here, the excellency of the pen and pencil, exemplifying the uses of them in the most exquisite and mysterious arts of drawing, etching, engraving, limnen, painting in oil, washing of maps and pictures, also the way to cleanse any old painting and preserve the colors collected from the writings of the ablest masters, both ancient and modern. This is from 1688. And real quick, so CW says here in this 1688 English painting manual, it gives literal color mixing formulas for skin tones, fair, tawny, brown, swarthy, absolute black, each progressively darker. It proves swarthy sat in the melanated band, not the pale default. It's not a tan, okay? Literally, okay? Let's go to the source. So here in chapter 3 of this book, it's talking about how to order your colors upon your palette, you know, and how to temper shadows of all complexions. So it's kind of giving a guide, you know, if you want to make some stuff, you know. As it says, first lay on vermilion, that's red, then lake, then burn ochre, that's for dispose your single colors upon your palette. Then it says for fair complexion, grab a little white and a little red and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And it keeps going. And then down in the next page, it says here, so as it says here, point number 2, for more brown or swarthy complexions. Brown is the same as swarthy. You see our dark colors. Brown or swarthy complexions. Lay your single colors on your palettes before in like manner. Temper them only amongst your white lake and vermilion. Put little quantity of burnt ochre to make it look somewhat tawny. All right, you got to use dark colors, all right? Swarthy complexion or brown for more brown or swarthy complexion, okay? Swarthy in 1688 literally meant a dark complexion, a dark color. So we continue in the CW files. It says here, genealogical history of the royal and illustrious family of the Stuarts from the year 1034 to the year 1710, giving an account of the lives, marriages, and issue of the most remarkable persons and families of that name, to which are prefixed first a general description of the shire of Renfrew, their peculiar residence and ancient patrimony of the Stuarts, and secondly, a deduction of the noble and ancient families, proprietors, therefore upwards of 400 years down to the present time. This is by George Crawford from 1710. It's a very old book. All right, so we go to about page 19 of this book. And I just want to show you something before I get to what I really wanted to show you. So it says here, Sir John Stuart, Sheriff of Bute, commonly called the Black Stuart, For this I have seen a charter under the Great Seal by King Robert III. Okay? And then right under here it says, to Sir John Stuart of Dundonald, commonly called the Red Stuart for his complexion. So, most likely this guy is darker. Sir John Stuart, Sheriff of Bute, the Black Stuart. Now, hold that thought. Over on page 83, you have the Earl of Atholl. Says here, having done with the branch of the House of Lorne, I come now to take notice of the descendants of Sir James Stuart, commonly called the Black Knight of Lorne, a younger brother of the noble family. Oh, they don't mean black cootie male. They don't mean black really. So over on page 88 is going to prove to you that when they're saying black, they really mean the complexion. It says here Stuart, Earl of Bute and Lord Mount Stuart. Says though none of this family did arrive to the dignity of peerage until the second year of the reign of our most gracious sovereign, Queen Anne, yet were they barons of great eminency and honored with several matches from diverse noble families for many ages before. They lineally descended from Sir John Stuart, commonly called the Black Stuart. That's what we were just talking about, from his complexion. So I read that earlier. Remember? Now they're literally telling you, why is he called Black Stuart? Because he's a black complexion, from his complexion. Son to King Robert II, okay? Son of King Robert II, the first of the family of Stuarts who enjoyed the crown of this realm. Okay, he obtained from King Robert III a charter confirming former grant of the sheriffs of Bute and Iran. Okay, so you saw all those previous sources I just showed you in the same book. They were talking about this family and this guy. Yeah, he's Black Stuart because of his complexion. All right, a knight and a noble of the Stuart families. Okay, ancestors prior to King James. All right, the Black Stuart from his complexion. The Black Stuart from his complexion. And we continue in another book. It says here the history of the house and race of Douglas and Angus. All right, we already know what Douglas means. That means dark or swarthy as well. House of Douglas. Man, we got this in the book Ancient and Modern Britons by McRitchie. Right, so we're still in the CW files. Let's just go real quick to an explanation before we read from it. It says, in this book, on the transition from page 96 to 97, we get a genealogical noble family chronicle printed in Edinburgh, 1743, by Rudiman's edition. The figure Sir James Douglas. All right, that's what we're talking about. Is identified as a Scottish knight of local noble lineage. He is described by the source as being black and swarthy in complexion, a literal inherited appearance not tied to sun exposure, allegory, attire, or African identity. The chronicle itself makes no claim of African origin, which again highlights the importance, historical reality that black presence in medieval Europe was documented through complexion without implying African ancestry, a correlation created much later in post-1800 racial thought. All right, yeah, the CW. So the first thing I want to point out in this book on page 3 is something we already know about Douglas. As I was saying, that means black. We already got the drop, and there's a lot of references to that in this book. I probably didn't even catch them all. You know, I'm trying to catch as many, but here they're talking about some nobleman pointing out to somebody, or the king actually pointing to the king, calling him a black man. So it says here, therefore the king being desirous to know of his lieutenants the particulars of the fight, and inquiring for the author of so valiant an act, the nobleman being there in person, answer was made unto king in the Irish tongue, which was then only in use. And he said, Sholto Douglas, Douglas. That is to say, behold, yonder black gray man. Behold, yonder black gray man, pointing at him with the finger and designing him by his color and complexion. He was pointing to the king of the Douglases during this time, because of his color and complexion, without more ceremony or addition, in addition to the titles of honor. Okay, I just wanted to point that out real quick. Douglas literally means black, guys. So around page 50 to 52, we talking about Sir James Douglas, okay, who offered to the king to serve him in those wars, and so fought against the enemy valiantly, and with great success at diverse times, fighting against the Saracens and Aragon and things like that. He became somewhat too careless and secure, and so on and so on. So I just want to read what he's described like. So over on page 52, it says, now, as in these respects, it is somewhat to be pardoned. So is this use to be made of it, that we despise no enemy, however inferior, and to issue too much confidence and presumption in whatsoever advantage, which has been the ruin and loss of many worthy men. He is said to have been of a black and swart, you see that? Swart complexion, black and swarty complexion, and to have lisped somewhat in his speech. Okay, who they talking about? Sir James Douglas. Until the time of his death in 1330. He died around 1330, medieval times, guys. This Sir James Douglas, who died around 1330, is being described as black and swarthy complexion. You guys see that? This book is from the 1700s. All right, and they're getting this from primary sources. So we continue on page 207. And we've talked about this part right here in the book Ancient and Modern Britons, how there's two different sanctions or groups and same family. Some are more lighter, some are darker, right? And it's talking about that right here, about the Earl Douglas and his family. It says, but that which diminished their power and ruined the Earl Douglas was the falling of the houses of Angus and Morton from them to the king. For the last battle at the Earl Douglas was at the Earl of Angus. This discomfited him, so that it became a proverb. The red Douglas put down the black. So the red Douglases fought the blacks. All right, they put down the black ones. It says those of the house of Angus being of the fairer complexion. You see? They might have raised 30 or 40,000 men under their own command and of their own dependers only, and these most valiant. Okay, so you guys can see we actually got this in my series Ancient and Modern Britons way more. So the red Douglases beat the black Douglases, or put down the darker skinned Douglases. All right, let's continue. And in page 432, there is a description here of the Earl of Angus, or Archibald Douglas. It says that he was of a blackish swart complexion. Do you guys see that? All right, you guys see where it's highlighted? He was of blackish, and swart complexion, tall of stature, and of a slender body, but well proportioned and straight limbed, of a weak and tender constitution, and not very able to endure travel, but having courage enough and willingness to undergo. Okay? Archibald Douglas, blackish, swarthy complexion. The Earl of Angus. Okay? The Douglases were in general very melanated. Their name literally means black. Douglas, two types of black. Douglas is two ways of saying black, or swarthy black. Literally like his complexion, blackish, swarthy complexion. Do you guys see that? All right, blackish, swart complexion. Swart complexion. Swart complexion. We're talking about black Scots again, you know. But this one right here is from the Hodge Files. Shout out to Hodge, man. Shout out to Hodge, man. He found this right here. We're in the Dictionary of National Biography, edited by Sidney Lee. And these are from 1885 to 1900. So this is from volume 5. There's a lot of volumes of this dictionary. Many volumes, guys. So this is in volume 5. And when you find Cuthbert Blackadder, this is the info you get. He died in 1485. It says a chieftain of the Scottish border. Received his surname and estate from James II. In 1452 for his success in repelling the English marauders on the Scottish frontier. By his prowess, he earned for himself the title of the Chieftain of the South. He and his 7 sons who accompanied him on his expeditions were also named from the darkness of their complexion. Again, from the darkness of their complexion, the Black Band of the Black blackadairs, okay? The blackadairs from their darkness of their complexion, okay? We got this on the book Ancient and Modern Britons, guys. Remember, the from the darkness of their complexions, that's where they get their name, the blackadairs. When the kingdom was placed in the posture of defense against Edward IV, the Blackaders raised a force of 217 men and also planted their castle with artillery and left it in a strong garrison. During the wars of York and Lancaster, Cuthbert and his sons took service in England and fought under the banner of the Red Rose in the fatal Battle of Bosworth, 22nd of August, 1485. He and his three of his sons were slain, okay? And why they're called the Blackadairs? The Blackadairs because of the darkness of their complexion. They were called the Black Band of the Blackadairs. The Black Band because of the darkness of their complexion. And we're back in the Kirkland files. Real quick, watch this one, guys. This one's crazy. It says here, Harper's New Monthly Magazine, Volume 7, from June to November. This is from 1853. So before I read from it, I want to show you guys who we're talking about. So we're going to be talking about Charles James Fox. It says here, he is styled the Honorable. From 1762, was an English Whig politician and statesman whose parliamentary career spanned 38 years of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. He was the arch rival of the Tory politician William Pitt the Younger. His father, Henry Fox, the first Baron Holland, a leading Whig of his day, has similarly been the great rival of Pitt's famous father, William Pitt, first Earl of Chatham, the Pitt the Elder. All right. So what I want to point out, first of all, this is the whitewash image. You're going to see what he's described like. And we're going to come back to this image. You're going to see how crazy it is. Because watch how he's described. It makes no sense. This is a straight up whitewash image replaced completely. Okay, he got replaced completely. I'm going to show you what I mean. So where it says early life, just want to show his lineage, guys. Now, you guys remember Charles II, right? Black Charles II. The Negro Charles II, right? You guys remember, right? Well, he's a descendant of Charles II. Let me show you. Through his mom, Caroline Lennox, Lady Caroline Lennox. Her dad is Charles Lennox, 2nd Duke of Richmond. When you go to him, I just want to show you guys, right? His dad is Charles Lennox, the 1st Duke of Richmond, right? And then it says here, Charles Lennox, 1st Duke of Richmond, this is his grandfather, was the youngest of the 7 illegitimate sons of King Charles II, and was that king's only son by his French-born mistress, Louise de Courau, Duchess of Portsmouth. He was appointed hereditary constable of Inverness. All right. So that's why I wanted to show you guys. So Charles James Fox is a descendant of Black Charles II. Now we're going to go to the source again, and we're going to read what he's being described like, okay? So over on page 371 of this book, right, that we just mentioned, Harper's Monthly Magazine, right, from 1853, volume 7, from June to November, it says here, A Day with Charles Fox, okay? So it starts going, talking about, a day they spent with him, they're doing like a little biography, right? So it says here, lounging over his late breakfast sits one whose personal appearance alone would rivet the attention. His figure in robust manhood, so he was pretty, he was chubby as they drew him, but his robust manhood shows none of those traces of dissipation that we might have expected from the life of a roisterer. His swarthy complexion, okay? Oh, they don't mean black, cootie male. They don't mean Negro. They mean a tan. They mean he just got black hair. Man, stop making things up. Look what it says here, guys. Ready? His swarthy complexion recalls to us his nickname. Look at that. The N-word. Look at that. I'm not even going to say it because I'll get the video flag. Look at that. He's called the N-word. Look at that. All right, you guys see that? His swarthy complexion made him be called the N-word. All right, you guys see it? Nicknamed the N-word. All right. And the thick and bushy eyebrows. Listen, thick and bushy eyebrows with something of a saturine aspect, strangely blended with the signs of a passionate temperament, remind us of his Stuart blood, all right, through the Lennox family. What does it remind us of? That the Stuarts were black. His his swarthy complexion, which gave him the nickname the N-word, right? The N-word or Negro, right? They call him a Negro, literally, right? It's because of his Stuart bloodline, as it says here, through the Lennox family. We just traced it. I told you that he is a descendant of Charles II. Very swarthy Charles Stuart, right? And one last time before we go, his swarthy complexion recalls to us his nickname, the Negro, or the N-word. You guys see that? Let me zoom in. You see that? Swarthy complexion, N-word. Fair use, educational purposes. All right. Anything else to say? Do you guys see what we're doing? We're changing history here, guys. This is very revealing. This should be all over the mainstream education, but it's not. You are here witnessing this. Make sure to spread this, guys. Help me spread this info, these videos. Please tell people, look, how can you deny this? How can you say Swarty don't mean so-called black? And how can you say they're not talking about a Negro when even the whole line has been shown to be all black folks, all these people, all these videos, and look at him. It's literally saying because of his Stuart bloodline, he is Swarty or the N-word, a Negro. Okay? Body bag for the illusion. Shout out to Drop, man. Come on now, guys. Look at this, man. All right, we're going to continue, but look at this. Man. All right, so we continue in the Kirkland files. We have another source here, another person. It says here, the monthly review or literary journal by several hands, volume, I believe 38 from 1768. Okay, the monthly review. All right, so right here we have a reference of Princess Christina or Queen Charlotte's sister. Okay, so it says here the Duke's sister, Princess Christina, is in her 130th year, tall and gentle in her person, round-faced, large blue eyes, and brown complexion. Okay, so even though she has blue eyes, she has a brown complexion. She is extremely well-shaped, of an engaging carriage, and a most graceful figure, but a little marked with the smallpox. She got smallpox, so a little bit of the smallpox, but she has a brown complexion. Princess Christina, the sister of Queen Charlotte. So in the same book, we have here a reference of Prince Charles, the one that was born in 1741. It says he is of a middling stature, round face, wears his own hair, has a lively aspect, black eyes, and his complexion brown. All right? He is perfectly well shaped with a noble air and robust constitution. His imagination is lively, his conception quick, joined to solidity. All right, we move on. And the same page, next, we got a description of Prince Ernest. It says Prince Ernest was born in 1742. He is a middle-sized, has an oval face, wears his own hair, is of a delicate form, with large black eyes and a brown complexion. Brown complexion. In short, his features are so regular, so on and so on. Hey, all these people are swarthy, colored folks, so-called black, all right? Brown complexion people here. Prince Ernest, Prince Charles, and all the rest of the princes and princesses. All right. Moving on. All right. We're going to another book. It says here, Travels Through Germany, with a particular account of the court of Mecklenburg. This is volume 2 by Thomas Nugent from 1768. So I believe on this part, we are talking about Prince Louis, who is a son of King Louis the 15th. It says here, Prince Louis, the Duke's brother, is of a middling stature, well made, with a round face, regular features, and a brown complexion. The goodness of his temper and the generosity of his disposition make those about him happy. State and dignity, he does not seem to affect being as much as an enemy to pride as the Duke, his brother. All right? Talking about Prince Louis, son of King Louis the 15th. Remember, all these King Louis are all also Swarthy. The whole family is black. We've shown it in previous videos. Make sure to watch the whole playlist. That's what I'm telling you. So you guys can see we just keep corroborating more and more. Prince Louis, brown complexion. All right. So we head back over to the CW files. And we got a good source right here. I'm not sure if I read this one before. I think it looks familiar, but I'm not sure because a lot of these old books, kind of look the same. But either way, we're going to go over it. CW shared this. It says a Chronicles of the Kings of England from the time of the Romans government unto the death of King James, containing all passages of state and church with all other observations proper for a chronicle, faithfully collected out of authors ancient and modern, and digested into a Mechat by Sir Richard Baker. He's a knight, where is added the reign of King Charles I and the first 13 years of his sacred majesty, King Charles II, and now reigneth, in which are many materials affairs and so on. You guys see how long this title is? All right. This book is actually from 1670. Okay, guys, this is from the 1600s, 1670. As you guys can see here, 1670. So we begin on page 102. And just so you know, this is in regards to Edward the First. Edward the First, of his personage and conditions, he was tall of stature, higher than ordinary man by head and shoulders, and thereof called long chank. He's of a swarthy complexion, okay? Swarthy complexion, strong of body, but lean, of a comely favor, his eyes and his anger sparkling like fire, the hair of his head black and curled, all right? Curled hair, swarthy complexion, okay? Curly hair, swarthy complexion. Concerning his conditions, he was in war peaceful. Okay, so swarthy complexion, again, to the side on the right, you see King Edward, called Longshank. All right, Longshank. He's swarthy complexion and curled hair. We continue on page 232 of this book, and this is in regards to Richard III. All right, Richard III. Richard III, and it says here, there never was in any man a greater uniformity of body and mind than was in him, both of them equally deformed. Of body he was but low, crook-backed, hook-shouldered, splay-footed, and google-eyed. Man, this guy, man. His face little and round. His complexion, swarthy. Okay? His complexion, swarthy. You guys see that? His left arm from his birth, dry and withered, born a monster in nature. Bam. With all his teeth, with hair on his head, and nails on his fingers and toes. And just such were the qualities of his mind. All right. We got Richard III here. Remember, this is from 1670. All right. Richard III, swarthy, complexion swarthy, and he had a messed up body, man. Damn. And again, guys, that's where we're going to leave off today. Remember, I'm going to add all these videos from today and yesterday into my Black Europeans History playlist. Make sure to catch up on that. There's now 183 videos in this playlist for you to catch up on. Okay? You're not going to regret it. You're going to learn so much history, and you're going to see how much Europe was whitewashed, guys. That was black land too, guys. So-called black land. What do you want to call Kemet? Yeah, no. Kemet just means rich, fertile black soil. Not about the people. It's about the soil. But either way, talking about Black Europeans history right here. All right. I hope you enjoyed another edition or segment of these Black Europeans Uncovered. All right. Shout out to Kirkland. for the Kirkland files and CW and the CW files and, Hodge there. Thank you guys for your help. I hope you guys enjoyed this part. Again, I got more coming. I'm probably going to do more and more as the days go by, as I'm here in my bed resting, trying to heal, guys. This is a pretty bad injury I got. I'm going to take some ultrasound and x-rays just to make sure with a neurologist specialist, just to see, make sure it's nothing, bad. It's just, taking long to heal. Even though it's healing, it's a very bad injury. But I appreciate you guys for the support and the patience and all that. I'm doing this from my phone, so hey, hopefully I'm doing a good job. And thank you guys for tuning in, making the time to be here. All right, check out the playlist. Like, don't front, don't wait, don't bull. Go ahead and check out the playlist. I'm telling you, you're gonna like it if you like these videos. They're even deeper. All right. So much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow.